Now, so I guess my question is this. There's a lot of talk online about people who are not scientists who are talking about plasmas, plasma orbs, a plasmoid. Could you please, for the record, explain to us what a plasma orb is? Is it even a thing? Is there such a thing as a plasmoid? Do they come in contact with Earth? Are they dangerous? Should we be on the lookout for things like this? And if these things are in near Earth in our atmosphere, beneath and intermongst our clouds, what does that mean?
Yeah. So I did my PhD in plasma physics. That was actually my early expertise. And a plasma is basically hot gas that is in which atoms and molecules are broken into their constituent electrons and ions. And so what you end up with is a lot of free charges. That's what a plasma is. And you get to a state of plasma from, let's say, a gas cloud by heating it up, injecting energy into it. So when there is an explosion, when a meteor strikes the atmosphere, you end up with a fireball that is a plasma. A plasma is simply hot gas in which atoms and molecules are broken into free electrons and ions. Okay. Now, how do you get that? Well, if you release a large amount of energy into a small volume, you can get that. Or, that can be done by a spark. If you have a lightning, then you can generate a blob of plasma because the lightning releases through the electric currents that dissipate heat into the air. You end up with creating a plasma. Another possibility, if there is some kind of an explosion, a meteor strikes the atmosphere, or there was an energy release from some other source. For example, a laser, if it's powerful enough, can create a plasma plume. And the plasma plume will have a signature in radar systems. It will emit bright light because it's very hot gas. The sun is made of a plasma. It's a hot ball of hot gas. And
I've heard the theories that the whole universe is a plasma-based universe.
Yeah, the entire universe is mostly in a plasma state. The most of the ordinary matter is hydrogen, and it was broken into electrons and protons by the ultraviolet radiation from stars. So most of the universe is a plasma. So now the question is, what could be a source of plasma? And, you could shine a laser and create a deposition of energy in a small volume that looks like a plasma blob. You can have an object that moves very fast, like a meteor or an airplane that creates some plasma, especially if it's supersonic. It really depends on a case-by-case basis as to what's the source of this plasma plume. But the important thing to keep in mind, it's not a solid body. Although if there is a solid body like a meteor moving very fast, it will deposit a heat into the atmosphere and create a ball of plasma around it. So that's what a plasma is. And then the question is, under which circumstances do we see those? And, for example, suppose you have a laser and you shoot it and it's very powerful. So you can confuse a radar system by creating a blob of plasma by depositing at the focus of the laser, So one reason to do that is to confuse a radar system, to think that there is an object, but in fact, it's not a real object. It's
interesting. Wow.
So an interesting question that some people suggested is whether the Tic Tac report from 20 years ago could have been triggered by plasma blobs rather than physical objects, because then you can, just like a spot of a laser, you can move them very fast, much faster than physical objects, and that would confuse potentially the radar systems or the infrared system, all the ultraviolet detectors that notice heat or a ball of ionized gas, and it could move very fast.
That's so interesting that plasma is three-dimensional. However, it's not solid, but it does have high condensed energy, right?
And it has high pressure. So usually what happens is, because of its high pressure, it tends to expand and lose its energy eventually. And the question is, how long? So either you inject energy continuously, so you maintain always some core of that plasma blob, or if you were to deposit it in a short period of time, then it will expand and dissipate and disappear eventually.
Well, here is the $1 million question, Avi. If a plasma orb can be created through some sort of human technology, say like a laser, high powered laser, could theoretically we control that plasma orb to operate in a manner that we can manipulate?
In principle, yes. We can potentially do that. The question is the military playing games with us, and yeah. It's really important to establish whether an object that we think is an object is actually just a blob of heated gas and it has no solid interior to it, because then it can move really fast. We all
Because it
know
doesn't have
about.
to follow the rules of physics.
Oh
Because
no.
it's just light and gas,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
lighter than air, right?
Right. It could move really. I mean, you can change the point where you focus the energy into, and just like playing tricks with a cat,
I
that
was just going to say that, like
simulation.
a laser pointer. Yeah.
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 Yeah, and we know the military invested in laser beams, very powerful laser beams, as for the modern battlefield. And I don't know if they're using it sometimes, and might, if they are exercising with it, maybe they can fool people to think that these are real objects.
Well, there is a theory, and this is just conversation. And I know I'm getting off into a little bit more of the conjecture, but in the ufology, there's we've all heard of the founder of NASA, the former Nazi guy.
Oh yeah, Werner von Braun.
Werner von Braun, yeah. Werner von Braun on his deathbed in 1972, I think he had the secretary, and he said that there's going to be something called Operation Bluebeam, where there's going to be a fake alien invasion, and it's going to be all done by NASA. And this is like the founder of NASA, right? He sat there with Kennedy. He was responsible for the rocket to go to the moon. Unfortunately, he was one of the bad guys in World War II. He was the one who developed the rockets, for the Nazis, but then we bring them over here. How do you feel about that? The whole, not just Bluebeam, but how do you feel about that? Our manned space missions in the United States were built off of Nazi scientists.
Well, I feel pretty bad about that. At the time, they were trying to use the best talent they have access to, but I think they should not have used a former Nazi. And that's really unfortunate. Whether the military and NASA are, playing tricks with the public in the sense of, developing technologies that are used for purposes that are unclear, like either for future battlefields or to confuse the public about the new technologies being developed. I have no idea, and it could explain some. Obviously, unidentified flying objects are a mixed bag. Some of them may represent technologies that either adversarial nations or the US government developed, while others are not being explained. So I think there needs to be more research into that so that we can clear up the situation. And because it's possible there are factions within the US government trying to confuse the public. And that's why, we hear on the one hand from eyewitness testimonies in Congress that there are programs in government for retrieval and reverse engineering. The question is whether these are retrieval and reverse engineering of human-made objects, which would be quite natural given that other nations are also trying to do that, or they found something really unusual and they keep it under wraps. And, it's just inappropriate if they're doing the second thing. I think they should share it with the best scientists in the world so that we can help them figure it out. It's not a matter of national security if we're dealing with something that came from outside the solar system.